Hey guys, welcome to the first podcast from me, Lewis Bennell at 10 Ton Hammer. I wanted to take this first podcast just to really have a quick chat about Evolve. I was planning on writing up a first impressions piece, and instead for ease and speed, I thought I'd actually just have a chat about it. I've read quite a lot of statements on Reddit, over on Twitch, and various forums regarding the game. I think a lot of people first arriving on the scene are probably a little bit disgruntled about what the game is actually offering. For anyone who doesn't know, it's simply a case of 4 hunters against one monster, with the view that the hunters have to kill the monster or the monster has to kill the hunters. It's a really simple game mode. And I think what's potentially putting people off at this point in time is the fact that the depth on offer in the game is not readily apparent when you first start it up. There isn't a huge amount of depth in terms of what the hunters can accomplish by themselves, and I think that is what is potentially putting a large amount of players off. From my experience with games like Brink or Quake Wars or Team Fortress 2, these are games that require a huge amount of teamwork to actually accomplish anything. And what I've been finding recently, or certainly over the last few months, is the fact that people like the concept of a team game, but they don't necessarily like to work as a team. It's obviously much more difficult in a pug environment when you don't know the people that you're playing alongside, but when you're actually constrained to needing those around you, it can tend to agitate those that are of a sort of solo mindset. So Evolve doesn't really do itself any favours in that regard, because if you don't work as a team, you are going to be destroyed quickly by the monster. And even if you do work as a team, a good monster is still capable of challenging the hunters that follow him. So the immediate enjoyment of Evolve, I don't think it's readily apparent, and I think it will only become apparent as players begin to dig down into the meta of the game, as people learn the monster more and how to evade capture from the first sort of 2-3 minutes of the game, where you can begin to eat and evolve. And as the hunters and the player of hunters begin to learn their classes and what works and what doesn't, at the moment what I'm seeing on games is that people choose their hunter or hunters, they'll get in game. As soon as they land out of the dropship, they will follow Daisy in a line of 4 while the monster is X amount of distance away from them. It's not a particularly exciting method of play. It's quite repetitive to play the game in that way, because it just becomes a case of follow the leader. I think what people really need to do is step back a little bit and think, well, actually, how would I find this monster? And using Daisy alone is a really lazy way of doing that. People aren't splitting up at this moment in time. They're not going as twos and going north and one group going south or east or west. All they're doing is going around as a train on the map in the hopes of Daisy leading them directly to the monster. And while that's effective against some monster players, it's not really effective in the long term as people begin to become more skilled as the monster. So separating out your hunters is incredibly important, but it's also important to actually utilise the hunters as a group and actually use voice communications. If you haven't got a microphone, I would really recommend that you pick one up for Evolve, because the inbuilt microphone setup for the game is really good. It's really accurate, it's really clear, and fortunately for me, most of the pub groups that I've been part of have actually been using microphones. And I think on the day of release I had about 20 games back to back, and the majority of them was played with the same people, and we actually got some really good camaraderie going, where we were working together as a group of 4, and like I said, 2 of us would break off to one point and 2 of us would break off into another area of the map in the hopes of sort of pincering the monster in. When it comes to the monster itself as well, what I'm seeing is that people will arrive or spawn as the monster. They will instantly run in one direction, they'll smell once, in the hopes of finding a creature. They'll eat it, and then they'll just keep running and running and running, either a circle around the map, clockwise or anti-clockwise, and rarely using sneak. And I think what's really important, that's not readily apparent, is the fact that as a monster you need to sneak from the very beginning, and you need to use your smell constantly. If it's not on cooldown, you need to use it repeatedly over and over and over, because it shows up the birds, it shows up creatures nearby, it shows up hunters that are chasing you, and it shows up aggressive creatures that you can avoid or utilise to take down hunters. As a monster, you'll begin to learn specific creatures as well, that are either quick to eat, that provide you with a good temporary buff. Some of the buffs are incredibly powerful, such as you'll eat 100% faster, your armour will regenerate 35% quicker, you'll deal 35% more damage. There are a lot of buffs out there that you need to track down quickly. Something that I've also noticed is that players become incredibly greedy as the monster, and they'll see creatures, they'll eat one, they'll see another, they'll eat it, rather than actually staggering out the progression of eating. Because otherwise you're just going to eat to the point where the hunters catch you up, especially if they're using Daisy. When it comes to other tactics as the monster, I think you also need to be really aware of what hunters are against you. If they're not using Daisy, you've got at least 2 or 3 minutes where you are safe to eat, because if they're using Griffin, who relies on sound scanners, he has to place those around the map when he can only traverse the map so fast. So if you head in the opposite direction as the hunters from the start, and you actually sneak away, then you are in a really good position to get to at least stage 2 of evolution, because they just can't find you in that space of time unless they split up. And if they do split up, then you're in a really good position to take some of them down. So I think that's some of the subtleties with the monster, is the reliance on sneaking, the reliance on not being greedy when it comes to eating and actually staggering what you eat and where, learning the creatures that are in the map itself so that you can capitalise on which ones provide buffs and which ones are quick to eat. There's also the need to learn the map, have the map open and double back, use the waterways because they hide your tracks. And when you're in the water, you can usually submerge to the point where you can avoid being seen. The only difficulty really comes to the point where, when you are getting bigger and stronger and you're at the point of evolution, you will begin to glow, which makes it quite easy for people to see you. So there's a lot of subtleties to playing Evolve that I don't think is immediately apparent from day one or the first few play sessions, and I think people are either finding that they're killing monsters too quickly, the monster is killing them too quickly, and they're not really finding a middle ground with the play. And I think that's a real shame, because Turtle Rock have been really brave in what they've created, which is effectively just a sort of sexed up version of what we saw in Left 4 Dead, but they've been really original in its creation. And I think as a game mode it's incredibly risky as well, because if we were to compare Evolve, say, to Titanfall had a lot of hysteria surrounding its launch, and looking at the game now, you'd actually be lucky to find one because the player base is so small. And I'd hate to see Evolve go in that direction, because after the initial rush, I do think there will inevitably be a loss of players. But I'm hoping that those players that stick around begin to learn the depth that's on offer as a team game, and I think that is really, really important to remember in the back of your mind. Evolve is not one for solo play. You have to work as a team, and you have to use the utilities and skills on offer from all the hunters as a team in order to be successful. And even playing as a monster, you have to be really, really clever in how you play. You have to know the map, the creatures, the scenery, when to use your sneak skill, when to double back, when to use the waterways, when to save your leaps in case you get trapped in, when to use your skills so that they're not on lengthy cooldowns, so that you can actually begin to chain damage the hunters. So, my initial impressions, I absolutely love the game. I'm disappointed to hear so many people disliking it, but then again I'm not particularly surprised. This is not Call of Duty in a team environment. This is very much a team game that's maximised, that for a long time I've not seen to this degree. I think the last game I played that required such teamwork was probably Quake Wars, and even Brink to some degree, and Brink had its fair share of community distaste at the final game. So if it's not right for you, that's fine, but all I'd advise for people is give it a go, get some friends together, even if it's 4 friends against someone else playing the monster, or if you can get 5, that is even better, because I guarantee it's a lot of fun. You will have a lot of laughs, especially if you are all on the same team speak, chasing the monster down, knowing that one of your friends is playing the monster. And if you're the monster, get practicing. The Goliath is pretty tough to learn compared to the Kraken, but it is very rewarding, especially if you manage to sneak past players when they're right under your nose. So stick at it, and my review should be up later this week. I'll try to get some more videos up as well. In the meantime, I'll put up a video of the Wraith and the rest of the hunters in the next few hours. Cheers.